I invite you to join with me in the responsive reading. May all creatures be of a blissful heart, whatever breathing beings there may be, frail or firm, big or small, seen or unseen, dwelling far or near, existing or yet seeking to exist. May all creatures be of a blissful heart. Well, again, I welcome you to Fountain Street Church. We are here every Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. Most times everybody else is here, which is a much larger crowd and the full staff. I do want to thank the audiovisual staff and custodial staff and the volunteer ushers that decided to come here today rather than go out there. I would like to take a moment to reflect on Armistice Day, Remembrance Day, and Veterans Day. It was all called Armistice Day by all of the Allied nations. It was at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month that World War I ended with a peace accord signed in France by the Allied forces and Germany. Armistice means peace, a cessation of hostilities. It was the ceasefire that ended the World War I. It was a massive war. 20 million people or so died. It was thought to be the war to end all wars. All the countries referred to that day as Armistice Day. And 1 year later, on November 11 of 1919, Woodrow Wilson proclaimed the first Armistice Day remembrance here in the United States. Through the years, the name had been changed in a number of places. France and Belgium still refer to this day as Armistice Day, November 11. England and Canada changed the name of the day, Canada in 1931, to Remembrance Day. They wanted to remember and honor all of those who died in the wars. It's sort of like for England and Canada, a Memorial Day. And we, on our Memorial Day in May, remember the death of all those who died in our wars. Congress let the President and the nation observe Armistice Day through the years, but it wasn't until 1938 that it was a legal holiday. In 1938, Congress passed the law to make November 11 a legal holiday, a day, and this is the quote, "a day to be dedicated to the cause of world peace, and to be thereafter celebrated and known as Armistice Day." 1938. And so we celebrated this cause of peace, this armistice, for a while. But then in 1954, there was some other things going on in this nation, mainly the McCarthy hearings. Senator Joe McCarthy was looking for communists under every rock, holding Senate hearings that were quite an embarrassment. Ultimately, he was censured and removed from the Senate and died thereafter, a short time thereafter, 1959, I believe. What was going on there was we were having this Cold War, the beginning of the Cold War with the Soviet Union. And they were condemned as being godless communists. And we didn't want to see ourselves as godless, so it was in June, on Flag Day, June 14, that Congress decided to put the under God provision in the Pledge of Allegiance to show we were a godly nation. And also in June of that year, they decided another thing, to do away with the Armistice Day term and expand our view to include all veterans, honoring all veterans. Now, I think that's a wonderful thing, being a veteran. I think it's nice that we honor them, especially those who made sacrifices. And we do have many today making deep sacrifices for our country, and I do honor them. But I would also encourage you to reflect on the armistice, to reflect on this cause of world peace. 1938 Congress said, "It is a day to be dedicated to the cause of world peace." I'm afraid as we have come to honor the veterans, we are turning Veterans Day more into a celebration of our war machine rather than seeing the sacrifices our military makes as working for the cause of peace. So I'm a little torn every Veterans Day as I see these great military parades and celebrations of our military power. I do sincerely want to honor the veterans, but I also want us to remember it is a day that we need to celebrate the cause of peace and true armistice. May it be so in our day. And now we have. Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God for roses rare, for skies of blue and sunshine fair, for every gift I raise a prayer. Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God for lovely night, for mystic fields with stars bedight, for hours of dream and deep delight. Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God for love divine, the hopes that round my heart entwine, for all the joy that now is mine. Thanks be to God. For all the joy that now is mine, thanks be to God. it be thy name? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory
Again, thank you. Godly and godless spirituality. So we have a few ideas going on here. What is spirituality? What is God? How do they relate? Let's look at the spirituality first. You know, Maslow said we have this hierarchy of need. We take care of the physical things first, and then we elevate ourselves into higher thinking. Try to live above our ideas of our physical survival and our animal instincts, and think about relationships with others, relationships with nature. Develop our thinking beyond primitive things. The ancients may well have understood our relationship to nature better than we do, and they had ideas of the gods, some good ideas, some bad ideas, and those ideas have come down to us. So we have both a problem of sorting out the ideas of the gods and our problem sorting out ideas of ourself, because sometimes spirituality is thought of as just an egocentric, self-centered idea about my relationships to me. Well, we do need to figure out our own inner dynamics and how we best should think of ourself and construct our self-perception and motivate ourselves to do the right things in life. So we first realize we have to be at peace with ourselves, develop some sense of contentment and gratitude, and then to find some energy to pursue a purpose for our life, something meaningful. So when we ask that question, what are we living for, we can answer with something worthwhile. So what is spirituality and spiritual practice? It's all about that idea of developing our inner spirit and our perspective of self and our relationships. I contrast it with physicality, that is, the physical world. Yes, we have needs, we have appetites, both things we need to eat for appetites and also things we want. We have to be careful with all of that. We also have emotional needs for community and development of some higher things such as art and dance and music. And we know as we grow that we need to move our attention beyond ourself, beyond thinking of me and mine, and think of the greater ideals: beauty, truth, goodness, justice, compassion, love, you know all those things. We know there are spiritual realities that transcend our physical being and connect us to a greater human reality. And so at times we need to set aside opportunities for us to meditate, to ponder, to appreciate, to contemplate, just to feel, and then begin a dialogue. I would suggest right now in this moment you think of your breathing. Feel your breath. Take a deep breath. Exhale slowly and relax. Oh, you've probably done that lots of times, but do it now for a moment. Realize that you are surrounded by oxygen. Oxygen that enters you and gives you life. Praise be to oxygen. Without it, we do not live. Praise be to the sun and the moon and the stars and the earth. What does it mean to be a spiritual person? I think it means to be aware of all that sustains us and to be thankful for it and live a life of gratitude and appreciation. I had a little fun pursuing the idea of what does it mean to be a spiritual person on the internet. Oh my goodness, is there a variety of things out there? Some say it's as simple as being a loving person, to love yourself and to love others, to love people and animals and the planet, and to be a kind person. That's great. I vote for that. And this lady who calls herself Dr. Margaret Paul, she says people often confuse spirituality with religion. People can be both religious and spiritual, but it's also possible to be religious without being spiritual and to be spiritual without being religious. We'll talk about that dynamic a little more. Another gentleman says 7 ways to be more spiritual without being religious. A very practical approach he has. He says, make a conscious effort to love the people around you. It's a good thing. Make small connections with your higher consciousness every day. Do something for others without expecting anything in return. And then a real simple step, turn off the TV. That all helps. So we have all kinds of people seeking to be our spiritual guide and offering us advice on how we can be spiritual. But we have to be careful. You know, there's a lot of people willing to lead us in bad directions, either knowingly or unknowingly. I suggest you begin where you are. Begin with what you know. Expand the good you're aware of. Think of those spiritual ideals that are presented in many places. I suggest you might want to focus on love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. You know where I got those 9 items? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Anybody know where I got those? Thank you. A little Bible cred for those. That's from Galatians. Paul wrote that to the early Christian church. Wonderful. Called Fruit of the Spirit. We can engage in many kinds of spiritual practices, such as meditation and prayer, yoga, Tai Chi, Buddhism, other kinds of contemplation, all meant to develop our inner life and connect us to wisdom and knowledge. As one author says, wisdom and knowledge that is always available to us. Well, we need to be taught. We need to be aware. We need to find the sources. Now, religion is meant to be one of those sources that helps us develop our spiritual nature, to bring us closer to spiritual ideals. But often the shortcut for much religion is you need to know God. You need to have a relationship with God. And therein we have a little problem because God gets defined and thought of in some extremely diverse ways. I think it's a complicating factor, this formal religion and the ideas of God that are presented to us. So I think a spirituality that is godly can be good, can be bad. A spirituality that is godless can be good, can be bad. It depends on our ideals and our definitions. Wikipedia has a wonderful little opening paragraph on its topic, spiritual but not religious. You know, there's a lot of people that embrace that term these days. I'm spiritual but not religious. In fact, maybe up to a third of people surveyed, depending on the year and so on, see themselves as spiritual but not religious. Spiritual but not religious is a popular phrase used to self-identify a life stance of spirituality that rejects traditional organized religion as the sole or most valuable means of furthering spiritual growth. We have a lot of controversy over that in this country. There clearly are those who think if you're not godly and your spirituality is not God-centered, then it's no good, it's harmful, it's bad. Depends on what kind of God we're talking about. Religion offers us an immense diversity of views about God. Part of the difficulty is we have a history that is violent and warring when we speak of God and God's work in the world. King David was an extremely important figure in ancient Israel and the development of that religion. And the story of King David, when he was first given the promise by God that he was going to have an eternal kingdom, he was so excited about that, the book of Samuel tells us he immediately went out in 3 battles and killed over 40,000 people. And each time it boldly proclaimed, God gave him victory. And through the years, we've come to think that God gives us victory and that God takes sides in battles. In fact, God wants us to fight some battles. We have the Crusades early on in about the 10th century, where the Christians wanted to go back and retake the Holy Land from the Muslims. Somewhere between 1 and 3 million people were killed in that endeavor. A few hundred years later, the Catholic Church was split open with the Protestant Reformation, and we had the French Wars of Religion in the 1500s. Somewhere between 2 and 4 million were killed in those wars. The next century, in the 1600s, there was the thing called the 30 Years' War within the Roman Empire, and somewhere between 3 and 10 million people were killed in those wars. Today, in the Middle East, we have Sunni and Shiite Muslims and Christians and Jews and other flavors of religion all at war with one another. So whether explicit or not, we do have this idea of holy war. In fact, we're soon to come upon the season when we're going to get the idea presented to us that here in the United States there's a war on Christmas. Clearly, there are people who are feeling victimized, that there's a war in the U.S. on Christianity. There's books written about it. There's people that go on talk shows. There's a television network that promotes the idea that there is a war on Christianity in this country. And so there's this idea that God maybe even likes war or wants war, is certainly engaged in war, a war between spiritual forces that gets acted out. Well, my suggestion to you is that if your concept of God is that God likes war or that God has enemies, I think you're on the wrong path. Here's the article from the Thursday paper. Thursday always has a religion section. And this title, Putting God Second? Is that the answer to religious violence? And so, we struggle with this idea of God. Is God helping us or hindering us to find the pathways to peace? So the Kaufman Interfaith Institute had this Jewish, Christian, Muslim dialogue last week, and the theme was, to repair the world, how does religion help or hinder? So 3 prominent scholars got together and had this dialogue. The first was the rabbi, and his argument from his upcoming book, Putting God Second, suggests religion has a self-defeating feature that we must take seriously. He compared it to an autoimmune disease where the body cannot do what it wants and needs to do. He says, while God obligates the good and calls us to its service, God simultaneously and inadvertently makes us morally blind. Really? Yeah, God simultaneously and inadvertently makes us morally blind. The human religious desire to live in relationship with God often distracts religion's adherents from the tradition's core moral truths. So he describes two features of this religious disease, and I love these two terms: God intoxication and God manipulation. Now, have we got that going on in our country, huh? Big time. God intoxication and God manipulation. The article states, God manipulation occurs when we think that we know best what God wants and take it upon ourselves to fight God's enemies in ways that violate basic human values. I would suggest that if you think God has enemies, you're on a bad spiritual path. Just my opinion. The Christian speaker, Reverend Dr. Cynthia Campbell, gives a very sobering review of the passages in both testaments of the Bible where violence is described and even celebrated. Years ago, I went looking to find the commandments to kill. Now, we celebrate the one commandment that says, thou shalt not kill. We think that's a good idea, generally, but we still do it, even in the name of God. And so, what about this idea? Because I kept coming across these passages where God commanded people to kill other people. Well, I found over 60 explicit commandments to kill. This is a problem. The Christian speaker in this dialogue says, when orthodoxy is attached to power, the results can often be violence and the elimination of the other for the cause of right belief. And she concluded that claims of orthodoxy, the right thinking about God, that needs to be judged according to theological ideas and whether they lead to life or death, human flourishing or extinction. And so my suggestion is that there's a basic humanist perspective that must be applied both to religion and to our secular ideals. Does it lead to life or death? Does it lead to human flourishing or extinction? The reading I offered earlier about the sacred season of autumn, that it might be our teacher, that was written by a Catholic priest, Edward Hayes. There was a little interview with him, and they asked him, who do you write for? What's your audience? And he said, all people of goodwill, regardless of by what name they address the divine mystery. Next question, well, how is that possible that you can write for such a big audience? Because you're a Catholic priest. And he said this, I think is wonderful. The spirituality of Jesus was secular. His way of holiness focused on living with a passionate, totally encompassing love for God and neighbor, such that it expressed itself not in religious rituals, but in nonviolence, hospitality to strangers, assistance to any in need, and compassionate care for the poor. I would suggest to you that Jesus was a humanist that was fighting against a religious fundamentalism of his day and trying to make his religion serve humanity and humanity's ideals. And I would suggest to you we still have that challenge. So whether your spirituality is godly or godless, we need to have the check to make sure it's humane. That we lift up those human ideals that we all know about: love and compassion and justice and fairness. May you find those ideals strong and vibrant in your life. May you embrace them, and may they guide you into a spirituality, with or without God, but a spirituality that serves life and the flourishing of life, that all life on this planet and in this cosmos would be blessed by the way you believe, the way you think, the way you act. May you be a blessing to humanity. Amen.